invitation, regardless of what you have done, to come back. That's the perspective twist we got to make the change in our lives. I'm no longer it says if I'm saved, there should be a heart change. And I talked about this last week, that you are to come as you are, but come on, you cannot stay the same. There is change that's got to happen here. And if we're going to get up out of the failure, if we're going to get up out of the sin, if we're going to get up out of our mistakes, we've got to take this heart change. And I want all of us not to doubt our salvation today, but I want all of us to reflect and say, where is the change in my life? We're going to deeply reflect, not to doubt our salvation, but we're going to make sure that we're making the right changes to go into next year so that the same mistakes don't happen again, because we're educating ourselves spiritually right now. We're educating ourselves spiritually to not make the same mistakes, because we know that grace is not a license to do it again, but grace is an invitation to come back. Grace doesn't excuse the failure. Grace redeems the future. Write that down. Grace doesn't excuse my failure. It still happened, right? It's still there. But it redeemed me to go forward, amen. It washed it away. Grace says come back. Grace says you're still wanted. Grace says your story isn't over. Grace doesn't ignore the mistake. Because you think about it, I talk about it all the time. Jesus drawing the line in the sand with Mary Magdalene. They were about to stone her because she was a prostitute and doing bad things. They caught her in bed. And Jesus walks up. Savage Jesus says, "Ye without sin, cast the first stone." Now what am I supposed to do if I'm one of the Pharisees or Sadducees? Because I've been bad, right? I failed. So the stones all fall. And here is grace and its invitation to come back. Jesus draws a line in the sand, and then he says, "I forgive you," obviously. But what does he say at the very, very end that we like to overlook and not make? Preachers miss this everywhere in the United States, wherever they preach. We preach this watered-down gospel. But here in the line in the sand, Jesus says, "Go and sin no more." Don't miss it. It's important. Because grace isn't a license to keep doing it again. Grace drew a line in the sand, and he didn't say, well, you just keep living your life. No, he said, here's the line, don't cross it. He said, here's the line, don't sin again. You now have been educated on the boundaries of where you can go. And grace has drawn a line and says, you can come back to me even though you cross this line. But don't do it again. Grace doesn't ignore the mistake. It refuses to let the mistake have the final word.